Thank you so much, everyone, for watching Moments That Define Us podcast on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe so you know when the next episode is coming up. But not only subscribe, share with other people so we can build community around this podcast, so we can share more stories, more defining moments. Because as I always said, sharing a story has the power to heal. So subscribe and share, and let's build community. Thank you. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Moments That Define Us. I'm your host, Iryna Barnett. And today we have a very, very first guest of season 5. And I am very, very excited for this brilliant, badass woman. Her name is Ber-Henda Williams. And I always like to read out titles that each woman that I interview have. So this woman, and I probably only have 10% of what she is. Ber-Henda Williams. She's a soul coach, poet, public speaker, and facilitator, podcast host, talk show host, a daughter, a friend, and just an amazing, amazing community member. And I just want to say a few places that she spoke and facilitated: South by Southwest, Toyota, Detroit Women Leadership Network, Creative Mornings Detroit, Wayne State University, and so many more places. Ms. Ber-Henda Williams, welcome to Moments That Define Us.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much, Iryna, for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you so much. Ber-Henda, to understand the woman you are today, I want to travel with you, if you can take me on a journey, to where your story has begun. So tell me, where has your story begun?
Oh, wow. That is such a good question. And I don't know that it's ever been framed to me in quite this way. Where does my story begin? So I would say, as many of us, we have multiple incarnations in one life. And so I'll start with maybe my third act, if you will. And what I mean by that is, um, in my third incarnation as an entrepreneur, I've tried to do this several times, and I'm not going to say that I failed, but I definitely say the other incarnations of a business and life were um, practice and gave me a lot of good information. And so I'll go back to 2018 because that was a defining moment.
There
I
you
went to
go.
Yes, sorry again. Defining moment. And why this was such a defining moment is because I had gone to several funerals before that year ended. I started with a funeral that rocked my entire community at the passing of a dear family friend and sister and community advocate, Monique. And so when I say literally it shook the community, I was on the phone all day with people. Hey, you know, I don't want you to see this on Facebook. Have you are you on your way to work? And I remember my friend telling me, no, I'm not good. I said, okay, you've heard already. And I knew that he was close. He and his wife were close to Monique, but then it started to ripple. I didn't realize how much of an impact this one person had on so many lives. And we collectively paused and mourned. I remember I was supposed to go to a teacher, um, it's back to school. The teachers usually go in a week or two early before the rest of the students, and I was just, I couldn't go. And I let people know what happened at my job. And I remember getting a case of water that morning and my whole family going over to her mother's house. And as her mother was talking, it was almost like she was a shell of herself. And um, listening to her talk as she weeps, I mean, just watching tears come streaming down her face, but yet she's talking to us like how you and I are having a conversation. You can see the disassociation, the movement, like she's there, but she's not there. And so that started in succession. It seemed like every other week there was like another funeral. Someone else had passed, someone else passed. So like people who were close, and these were young. I would say relatively young. I would say no one was over the age of like 50.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, yeah. I think there might have been like one or two outliers, but still, I think that there's a compound of grief and where to put all of it. And some folks had been sick, but then others just seemed to, like Monique, out of nowhere. So going to all of these different memorial services, funeral services, you start to read obituaries. And so what I think defines me most is that as I started to read these obituaries, there were themes that I felt were very common that started to emerge. And that is everyone was living the life that they intended. Many had partnerships, they had children, they had travel, they had careers that were fulfilling to them, passions and interests. And at the time, while teaching is a noble profession, it wasn't the thing that fired me up, that I woke
Mm,
up with a sense of, oh, I get to go do this thing. And so that indicated to me that I needed to make a change, that I had to do something. And I was maybe 38, 30, 39. So, again, I know that that's not old at all, but you begin to think about your life and where it's going,
right.
right? And you start to think about what really matters. And I was doing the thing. So I was running a girls leadership program with the Power of Girlhood. I was a coach, starting my coaching business. And I don't think I introduced the podcast back yet. No, I did have the podcast. I had a podcast. I had an iteration of a podcast. Um, but it wasn't doing well. So I said, okay, what do I need to evaluate in my life so that, knock on wood, someone were to read the story of my life, would it read back in a way that I would be proud of? And
Right.
so I quit my job. I'm not advocating that anyone necessarily jump up and quit their jobs, but if you are having a moment as you're listening to this podcast, and I know that your listeners um, value purpose, they value identity, and they value connection. And so if you're feeling in any way disconnected, if you don't feel like you're necessarily living a life that is exactly on purpose, or you're feeling like a tickle on the inside, or you're feeling a pivot to move into a different direction, I would strongly encourage you to listen to that still small voice. Listen to the spirit within you that's guiding you and that's showing you that perhaps the path that you were on needs a redirect. And I was on the phone with a friend one morning. It was a cold morning, icy morning. I was running late to work. And as I was sobbing on the phone with her, she said, "It's okay that you don't love this. Like, it's okay." And I don't know if sometimes we need permission.
Permission. Yeah. We just looking. I think that we're looking for somebody to tell us what we already know, to
Validation.
validate that, right?
Yes, the validation. And she said, "Ber-Henda, it's okay that if this is not the thing that you want to be doing." And she mirrored for me what I couldn't see at the time. She saw me the way I couldn't see myself. So I think that's also an important piece, Iryna, to have people that can maybe mirror for you what you can't see for yourself. Hold the vision with me until I can embody the vision for myself. And I'm sure you've done this for others. You've invited others to do it for you, that you have this vision of the thing that you're called to. You have the vision, but sometimes it might feel too difficult, too hard, too audacious, too whatever two you want to put on it for you to carry. And that's okay, because I don't believe that we don't raise children alone. We don't go through life alone. We need partners. We need advocates. We need support systems. In this world of like coaching and mentoring and what have you, you know, um, I think all of that is well intentioned, and I think that it's good. But I think that what we need is um, a place to have our tenderness held, as we step into the next leg or the next incarnation of our life. It's okay to say that you need emotional support. Like that's okay to name that, because those of us who are called to do big work in the world, that are called to step forward and to say uncomfortable things and to kind of shake up systems, that is lonely and it's difficult work, because not only are you squaring off, of course, yes, with the outer world, you're also squaring off with other versions of yourself that maybe want to seek comfort and not rattling, you know, rocking the ship or making too much noise. But I think that disruption is an important part of life. And I was getting the poke to disrupt my current life trajectory. And I think that those moments of those deaths in succession, and I think the last one that really got me over the edge and into action was my aunt passing in Germany. I got a message from uncle, and even though she's my aunt by marriage, I've known her my whole life.
Mm-hmm.
And so she was like blood family to me. And her passing, no, she was, oh, when I say I don't know if what her, and I say this with total tongue in cheek, like her life was better than fiction.
What do you mean by that?
So she kind of was a punk rocker. So like coming up in Europe in the era of like when the punk rock scene, really hit, um, you know, artists like, Sid Vicious and like the Ramones and like that kind of stuff. Like she was a total punk. She was, gorgeous. She looked like Catherine Zeta-Jones, and she was just defiant,
Yeah.
right? And just lived this life on her own terms, like very outspoken. Her light could fill a room. She was just really magnetic.
And so tell me how, because you said looks like all of this death that happened in your community really shook you. But then you said the one who really shook me was my aunt's death, that kind of show you, if I'm not trying to put the words in your mouth, but show you kind of a clear path what you need to do. So then what happened after that? How did you see the vision? How did you know for sure that something need to shift, something need to change for you?
Um, it was just clear. My passions, my desires, what lit me up, what held my focus, what held my attention, where I felt most expansive and alive, which is on stage, either performing my poetry, hosting my own podcast, um, convening community. And I think at the time, I was launching into my coaching business, but I believe even in my coaching business to this day, it's taken an evolution to where now I'm focusing more on the intuitive side. Well, yes, I still offer business strategy, but it has to come from a deeply spiritual place, and not just spiritual place. Again, where did my story start? What also is emerging are my values. Social justice, liberation work is spiritual work for me.
Yeah.
The people that matter, not just matter to me, but that I look to for guidance and inspiration, especially in this hour that we are in this country, are people like Audre Lorde, Bell Hooks, Dr. Martin Luther King, Bishop William Barber, Bishop Tutu, um, you know, um, Adrienne Marie Brown.
I mean, there's so
There's some.
many different, right? So many different people that I think hopefully a lot of people finding comfort and finding their urge to do what's right, to stand what's right, to help the community and everything.
Mhm,
But I wanted to ask you something.
mhm,
You call yourself a soul coach, and I have had a pleasure of working with you and listening to you speak, either listening to your podcast, listening to just different interview you done, listening to you on stage, just by preparing to this interview. And I can say that yes, stage is where you belong. And Mike is, I think I've heard that you said that Mike was your tool of expression, right? Because you mentioned that you were a poet, and I mentioned at the beginning.
Mhm.
But I specifically wanted to mention something about you as a coach. You, I would argue, not for everybody. And what I mean by that, because you're not your typical coach. You're not pro culture of grind, get up, no rest, let's go, 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 right? You
Yeah.
have a very different approach. You have a very soulful approach, I would say,
Thank you.
which again, I really, really enjoyed, working with you, getting to know you, knowing people that have worked with you, right? People say nothing but wonderful things about you. But I wanted to read something. You said that you are soul coach, helping business owner and entrepreneur align their business, soul, purpose, and calling. So you already talk a little bit about that kind of from your side, but how does one find their soul calling? What do people need to look for? Because especially now, I don't want to say especially now, there always been people that are working at places they don't love their job, right? They
Mhm.
work because, it pays bills, and we can argue that we need to pay our bills, right?
Oh yeah.
But like you said, we all have a purpose and calling, why we are here. That
Mhm.
deeper, we are not here to just pay bills. That's
Mm-mm.
very boring and very dry. But
Mm-mm.
what would you suggest? How does one find their soul calling?
You have to get still. So thank you so much for that question. And what's so funny is that the soul coach moniker I adopted only because that's what my clients were calling me. So I went through this evolutionary, and I think many of us do, where after you've done something for a period of time, you begin to refine the work. And for me, what was happening, and I'm going to be very transparent here, Iryna, I walked away from a couple of coaching containers and communities because, again, for me, spiritual work is also inclusive of liberation work, and divesting from white supremacist delusion. And so, what I have found, and particularly working in and around white women, there is a tendency to focus solely on patriarchy. But depending on all of the identities you hold, the patriarchy upholds white supremacy, but it also holds in place not just misogyny, but it also holds in place homophobia, xenophobia, ageism. It doesn't leave space for neurodivergence, as we're starting to see more conversations around, or people who are neurospicy. It definitely does not hold space for a more feminine approach to work, living, and being. It is easily threatened because it is full of ego. And we see that every day with the felon in chief in office right now. So it doesn't, while yes, I am a proponent of approaching work in a more feminine way, no matter what your gender identity is. So no matter where you are on the binary spectrum, there is a feminine approach that I believe incorporates stillness. And so if we want to hear the call of the soul and of the spirit, in some traditions is actually personified as feminine. Our soul is personified as feminine. You have to get still. You can't be, like you said, grind, hustle, because that's movement, and also masculine. And again, there's nothing wrong with that. There are times where you do have to light some fire and get things done. I think passion helps to propel us forward. But passion without clarity is frenzy, right? And if any of us have ever, you know what it's like when you have people getting ready to come to your house and your house isn't clean, and it's now 30 minutes before they show up, and now it's like you're in high speed because everything has to get in order. But inevitably, when you open the door and invite someone in, You see something that's kind of hanging or maybe not exactly in place, and you missed it because you were in a frenzy.
Yeah.
Well, some of us go through life in frenzy. And I want to be gentle with this, because if you are, depending on, again, your identity, frenzy may be all you know. It may be your set point in terms of like your natural homeostasis, because you're always on the move, always go, depending on what your life experience has been. But I do want to invite you that even if it's just 5 minutes, you have to set aside time to hear instructions for your life. And this is, again, for people who at least acknowledge that there is a higher power.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to put necessarily a religion on this, but in your spiritual practice of going inward, that name that has many names, that all presence, that great I am, um, manifests itself in many ways, comes to us, not just comes because it's always present. It's like you got to slow down to tune into the frequency. I like to compare it to like a radio station. I know we moved away maybe from radio, because now everything is sort of on digital platforms, and we tune in, to YouTube or Spotify or however we're listening to, or we're streaming now. But even in the streaming process, right, even with the internet, we have to be on the right frequency. We have to have the right connection. And if we don't slow down, then we'll latch on to any and everything. We live in a society, and I was actually meditating about that this morning, Iryna, where we're in a society where day in and day out, we're inundated with more data and information that we're really built for. Right? We are seeing multiple genocides through our timelines all day, every day. You can open up your cell phone, open up Instagram, and we are seeing carnage. We're seeing a huge discourse every day between our political systems of this huge ugly bill that has just been passed, where some perceive it to be a beautiful bill. But the truth of the matter is, no matter where you stand on party lines, if you are poor in this country, there is nothing beautiful
About that.
Okay. There is nothing glorious about the trajectory of where things are going. But in order to be an answer to, and in order to stand rooted in, so that we can see ourselves forward, so that we can hold a vision, well, you have to be still enough so that you can hear what your assignment is in upholding this grander vision, I believe, of a dignified life, because we are all worthy of a dignified life. And for your listeners who are maybe looking at a more purposeful work, who are looking to contribute in some way to the greater good, your natural gifts, talents, and inclinations are clues to what that is. But to do the work of the soul that lights you up, and this beautiful mystic Howard Thurman talked a lot about this, is that, go do what makes you come alive.
I can so relate to this, Ber-Henda. And in the world we live, where everything is such a fast pace, it's hard for people to get still. But it also begs the question, if you don't want to be still, but then you miserable at your job or whatever, or even in business, we're not just talking about 9 to 5. We're talking about, you might be having your own business, but you're not happy. It doesn't fire you up, right? But it's such a beautiful advice from you to say, be still and actually listen, because I believe with all my heart that the universe, the higher power, and like I like how you said, it doesn't have to be religion, it doesn't have to be church, it's whatever the higher power, right? Whatever you call that higher power, I think it's always showing us, giving us the sign and showing us, but we just have to choose to be still and to see it, right? Ber-Henda, I know that I have to we have to finish. So I wanted to ask you one last question. You have a podcast as well, so you are my fellow podcaster as well. And the name of your podcast is beautiful, just like everything else you do. So Ber-Henda has a podcast, and it's the name of the podcast, Soul of a Lead Her. It dedicated to she who lives and works from the soul. Tell my listeners, please, so they can also tune into your podcast. I know you're about to start, or did you already start
No,
your
we're getting ready to gearing up for season 3. I am so excited about season 3.
season 3? So tell a little bit about the podcast and also what to expect in season 3.
Yeah, so I think that if you listen to season 1 and 2, you'll track with me through an evolutionary pathway, because when I started the podcast, the first season, I was moving through a transition. My mother got ill as I was in the process of recording that podcast, and it felt like it took forever to get, because it was a lot of stop and start with it, and moving dates around because of the nature of my mother's illness and ultimately her passing. So a lot had transpired through that podcast, and even in the way I approached the podcast. So I mean, I'm sharing with people in real time, like what it looks like to run a business, to be a caregiver, to grieve in that process, but also keep your eye and mind and heart on the world in which we live. So simultaneously being in the world but not of the world, and what that looks like as a business owner. And so the arc, I believe, is tapping in, or I would even say tapping out to tap in, so that we can see our way forward. And so each of my guests that I interviewed, I believe, again, different faith backgrounds, different spiritual practices. But I think the thing that's unanimous about them is that they bring their whole self to the experience. They bring the radical level of authenticity to the work, of honesty, of vulnerability into the work. They center humanity in their work, and in some cases have had their humanity challenged, because either being a BIPOC person, being a queer person, um, being full bodied, presents itself, its own nuanced experience. So I think that when you listen to my podcast, I hope that you can hear a story that is your own, much like the way that you do in your podcast, that you can hear a story that is your own, and that you take something away from it that will nourish you and help you find that stillness. Because even within the podcast, like, I have a moment, if you're listening to it, to meditate.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
it's beautiful.
Slow down. Thank you. To slow down for just a moment.
Yes, and I have to tell you, I listened to quite a few episodes that you did, and because you mentioned that your mom passed, and you were close with your mom, and I remember listening to the episode that you did that you dedicated to her, and just how open and real and vulnerable you were, and it it touched me. It really touched me. And you through your interviews, I don't think it's through the storytelling you have on your podcast, you really bring out of people that you have on their full self, that they can be, because again, if you go on any show, on any podcast, if a host is open and inviting, people that come on also tend to be that way. So yes, everybody, please listen to Ber-Henda podcast. And Ber-Henda, when is the season 3 launching?
So I would love to give you like a definitive date. I don't have one,
Not
but
yet.
we are
Okay.
going. Yeah, not yet, but we are going into production. So and then, just in the spirit of full transparency to your listeners, I am also a caregiver to a father with dementia. So a lot dictates or is kind of hinged on that.
Yes. Okay.
Right. So I am moving at the pace of both grief and caregiving, and that slower pace also shows me what I have capacity for and what I don't.
And you are very good about that. You're very good about saying what you can and cannot do. So that's, again, And also I wanted to give you more flowers because you are really amazing and speaking up and standing for what is right for topics that some would call controversial. You are always speaking up and sharing and having different types of people. So that is amazing in the time where so many of us are being told that you can't talk about this, you can't do this. We need more people like you, who are building community, who are standing up for everybody, because just like you said, everybody deserves a dignified life, no matter how you look and where you come from or where you were born. We all deserve a dignified life.
Mhm.
And Ber-Henda, I think that would be a good time to end. But before I let you go, I know you have to go. Please tell everybody where they can find you and kind of what you have going on right now.
Yes. So, one of my gifts is intuition. So, I've been working with my clients around, supporting them in a more intuitive, spiritual way in guiding their businesses. I have a talk show that has launched, and I'm so excited about that. So, we'll be releasing episodes soon for that. And of course, we're always looking for partners and sponsors. So if that feels aligned for people who are listening, please reach out to me. Definitely listen to the podcast. And so I'm in the middle of a 12-month program. So I work with a very small group of highly sensitive and empathic women who are using those gifts towards social justice, equity, and inclusion in their business and in their lives. And so that's one of the offers that I have as well. But I'm really looking forward to right now being able to take unnetworking. That's another, I host an unnetworking event. We've been commissioned by other organizations to help with not just team building, but fostering a sense of community even within organizations that are established. So, people want more information on how to connect with me there. I hope soon to be in your neck of the woods to bring a networking. So I will travel. I really enjoy, providing people with and organizations with keynotes and workshops. So I'm in a beautiful space now where I'm offering, in part of facilitation, 2-day retreats for nonprofit organizations. So I think that, again, I'm just leaning more into what is not a heavy lift, but also lights me up. So I just invite people that are listening to check out my website and my offerings. You can reach out to me directly if there is a need within your community and organization to collectively come together, to be enlivened, to have people draw on their own experiences and alchemize those experiences to take you to your next level. That is really, I believe, that's what my gift is to help um, bring people closer and more to themselves. But then, like you said, with the things that are seemingly, controversial, it's sad that in this day that genocide is a controversial topic to say. That when we
Right.
look at what's happening in Palestine and what's happening in the Congo and Sudan, Ethiopia, Haiti, what's happening right here with alligator Alcatraz, I think that is devastating. So as a business owner, we may say like, well, as a business owner, I can't really have my head in politics or participate politically, but I would like to offer this. Human life, unfortunately, is legislated, but there is nothing political about a human being. That is within us, innate, to have care and compassion for one another.
Thank you. Exactly. We have to care no matter what you do. We have to care about one another. Brenda,
Mhm.
thank you so much. Thank you for giving me. I know how busy you are, but I appreciate it so much, your time and your effort. I will put your website and your Instagram when I release the podcast. And please check out Ber-Henda. She is not just smart and fun and beautiful. She's a badass woman, and I'm glad to have her in my life and in my network. But I'll reach out to you. You're gonna be in my neck of the wood. I cannot wait.
Yes, yes. So I'm firming some things up. I got to circle back around, but I would definitely, say to anyone, You can bring unnetworking to you, and you can find out more, about that on my website. So I'm super excited because we do have an episode that we're getting ready to tape of the Ber-Henda Williams show, but we also have unnetworking after each episode. So yes, check that out.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Ms.
Thank
Ber-Henda.
you.
It was my pleasure. I hope you enjoy your day and the weekend ahead.
Right back to you.
Thank you.
Bye for now.
Bye.